If you were to, like, blindfold me, put me in a car, spin me around a few times, and just drop me off at the entrance of my local grocery store,
Yeah.
I am fairly certain I could navigate the entire produce section entirely by muscle memory.
Oh, totally. You could probably do it with your hands tied behind your back.
Right. Like, I know the exact number of paces from those sliding glass doors to the standard bags of apples. I know the precise angle I need to reach out my arm to grab my usual clamshell of leafy greens. It's just this choreographed, highly optimized dance.
And you perform it every single week without a single conscious thought, I bet.
Exactly. Every week.
Yeah, I mean, you're describing a state of pure cognitive offloading. Your brain has entirely mapped that physical space, so you aren't really making active dietary choices anymore.
I'm just on autopilot.
Right, you are executing a pre-programmed sequence. And, it is incredibly efficient for saving mental energy, but the downside is it completely shuts down any opportunity for discovery or, well, dietary variation.
Which is exactly what we are getting into today. So welcome to the deep dive. For you listening, especially if you're the type of person who is always looking for the underlying mechanics of everyday life without drowning in academic jargon, we are going to deconstruct that exact pre-programmed grocery sequence today.
It's a really fascinating one, too.
It is. Our source material today is this short, really interesting script titled Bok Choy, a leafy green packed with nutrients. But if you approach this document expecting a straightforward recipe or like a bulleted list of macronutrients, you're going to be totally thrown off.
Yeah, you'll be looking in the wrong place.
Right. It functions much more like a philosophical manifesto on human behavior. It unpacks how we shop, how we eat, and ultimately how we connect with our environment.
Because the author essentially uses this one highly specific ingredient, the bok choy, as a Trojan horse.
No, I like that. A Trojan horse.
Yeah, I mean, they're using it to sneak in this much larger conversation about the hidden biological and honestly psychological costs of our daily food routines. We're really looking at a behavioral pattern that traps almost all of us.
So the mission today is to explore how picking up a simple leafy green represents this massive paradigm shift. We're going to unpack the evolutionary biology behind seasonal eating, decode the actual mechanics of the gut microbiome, and figure out how to transform cooking from, well, a mundane chore into a creative ritual.
It's a lot to cover, but it all connects beautifully.
It does. Before we get to the biological benefits of a new ingredient, we have to interrogate the mechanism of why we ignore it in the first place. The source identifies this as the grocery store autopilot trap.
Right, because when we walk into a supermarket, autopilot is just the default neurological state. The text points out that we walk past all these seasonal treasures produce that offers entirely different nutritional profiles and textures, and we just go for the familiar.
We just grab the carrots.
Always the carrots. But we need to look at the psychology of why this happens. It basically boils down to a concept they describe as ingredient intimidation.
Let's define that, because I think, everyone has experienced it. You're standing in the produce aisle, and you see this vibrant, completely unfamiliar vegetable. Maybe it's like a ridged, heavy squash or, a massive bunch of bok choy.
And you just stare at it.
Right, you look at it. You might even pick it up. But then your brain just rapidly calculates the friction involved. You think, okay, I have to find a recipe. I have to figure out how to chalk this thing. I have to risk my family absolutely hating it.
Yeah, that friction spikes, and you immediately put it back down. You retreat to the safety of the trusty carrots.
Exactly.
Well, your brain is actively performing a risk-reward analysis in that very moment. The perceived cognitive load of preparing something new heavily outweighs the theoretical nutritional benefit. So your autopilot just takes back control to save brain power.
I see a huge parallel here with how we consume media, actually. Like, I have a very specific Spotify playlist for my daily commute.
Oh, sure, the commute playlist.
Right, and I know every lyric, every guitar riff, every beat drop. It demands zero mental energy for me to process. It is super comfortable, but the downside is that it becomes this closed loop.
It just becomes background noise.
Literally, my brain stops processing the audio, and it just becomes a numbing background frequency. That is exactly what our diet becomes on autopilot.
That's a really great way to frame it.
But, okay, I have to push back a little on the text's underlying assumption that this autopilot is inherently a bad thing. I mean, for a busy person juggling a demanding job, a family, and just, chronic modern decision fatigue is a very real, measurable phenomenon.
Oh, absolutely. It's scientifically documented.
Right. So isn't this autopilot just a vital survival mechanism? Like, We simply do not have the cognitive bandwidth at 6 o'clock on a Tuesday evening to ponder the existential possibilities of a new vegetable.
That is a highly valid defense of the modern consumer, for sure. And, to be fair, the text doesn't dismiss the reality of decision fatigue at all. Autopilot is absolutely a biological strategy to conserve glucose in the brain.
So it is helping us survive the week?
It is, yeah. However, the source argues that we are making a pretty catastrophic trade-off here. We are trading long-term biological resilience for short-term cognitive ease. By staying on that safe food playlist, we miss out on the shifting, dynamic wellness profiles of seasonal foods.
Okay, let's dig into that trade-off then, because the source moves past behavioral psychology here and dives straight into the biological argument. It introduces this concept of dense, concentrated nutrition.
Which is a huge shift in how we usually think about food.
It really is. I mean, in a modern wellness culture that is obsessed with gamifying our food tracking, every single calorie, weighing out exact grams of protein and carbohydrates, this feels like a completely different framework.
It requires a total paradigm shift. Modern diet culture really treats food as this sterile mathematics. But the text is arguing for a qualitative approach over a quantitative one.
So it's not just about hitting your macros.
No, not at all. When the source talks about dense nutrition, it is specifically highlighting unique antioxidant profiles, specialized fibers that support the gut microbiome, and essential vitamins that actually fluctuate based on the season.
Okay, the text mentions specialized fibers supporting the gut microbiome, but I really want to break down the actual mechanism there because gut health is a buzzword that gets thrown around constantly.
Constantly. You see it on every supplement bottle.
Right. But rarely with any real explanation. Like if I'm eating my standard clam shell of generic spring mix every single day, I am consuming fiber.
Yeah.
Right? So why does my microbiome care if I switch to Bok Choy?
That's the million-dollar question. So we have to view the microbiome not as just a single organ, but as a highly complex ecosystem containing trillions of bacteria.
Trillions.
Trillions. And these bacteria don't just eat a monolithic substance called fiber. Different populations of microbes feed on very specific, distinct structural carbohydrates, which we call polysaccharides.
So let me try an analogy here. If you manage a sprawling national park and you decide to only ever plant pine trees, you are going to support a very specific type of wildlife, right?
Exactly.
The squirrels that eat pine cones are going to thrive. But eventually, all the animals that rely on, say, oak trees or fruit-bearing shrubs, they will completely starve and disappear from that ecosystem.
That is a perfect mechanical analogy. By eating the exact same usual leafy greens year-round, you are essentially cultivating a monoculture in your gut.
A monoculture, wow.
Yeah, you are actively starving entire populations of beneficial bacteria. But when you break the autopilot and introduce Bok Choy, you are introducing a complex, entirely new profile of specialized fiber.
You're planting the oak trees.
Exactly. You stimulate dormant bacterial populations. And here's why that matters mechanically. When these diverse microbes ferment these new fibers, they produce byproducts called short-chain fatty acids.
Okay, wait. Short-chain fatty acids, what do those do exactly?
Oh, they do a lot. They are the primary energy source for the cells lining your colon. They regulate systemic inflammation throughout your entire body. And they directly interface with your immune system.
Wait, really? The fiber feeds the bugs, and the bugs run the immune system.
In a way, yes. So the diversity of your fiber intake directly dictates the robustness of your immune response.
That is wild, and this connects perfectly to a claim the text makes that really fascinated me. It frames this entire nutritional argument through an evolutionary lens, stating that our bodies recognize and thrive on this seasonal variation.
It's all about the rhythm of the year.
Right. The source suggests that seasonal foods regulate our energy and immunity, specifically during the colder months. Let's examine the botanical side of this, though. Is there actually a mechanism that makes a plant more nutritious in one season versus another? Or is seasonal eating just like a romanticized farmer's market marketing tactic?
No, it is entirely grounded in botanical mechanics. Think about a commercial tomato grown in a sprawling, temperature-controlled hothouse.
Okay, the typical grocery store tomato.
Right. It is grown in depleted soil, pumped with synthetic fertilizer, picked while it is completely green and hard, and then artificially ripened with ethylene gas on a truck driven 2,000 miles.
That's delicious.
Doesn't it? But biologically, that plant has never experienced environmental stress.
And stress is what creates the nutrients.
Precisely. Plants produce phytochemicals, which are the antioxidants and complex compounds we rely on for health, as a defense mechanism against their local environment.
So they make them for themselves, not for us.
Exactly. They produce them to fight off pests, to survive droughts, and to endure frost.
So a plant that lives a pampered life in a greenhouse simply never bothers to manufacture the compounds that make it densely nutritious.
Yes. Why would it expend the energy? Let's look at bok choy, particularly the varieties harvested in the late fall or early winter. When that plant is subjected to cold weather and frost, it actually undergoes a biological process to protect its own cells from bursting.
From the freezing temperatures.
Right. It converts its starches into sugars, acting as a natural antifreeze.
Oh, wow. That's why cold weather greens often taste sweeter.
Exactly. But more importantly, to survive that environmental stress, the plant synthesizes a massive surge of unique antioxidants.
And then when we consume that specific cold-stressed plant, its chemical defense mechanism essentially becomes the building block for our own winter immune system.
That is the ancestral rhythm the text is talking about. I mean, for the vast majority of human history, our ancestors obviously did not have global supply chains.
They weren't shipping in hothouse tomatoes in January.
Definitely not. They consumed plants that were experiencing the exact same local environmental stressors that the humans themselves were experiencing. Their diets naturally shifted with the seasons, which provided a highly diverse, cyclical loading of different nutrients.
This implies that our modern biological systems are actually expecting a seasonal rotation of nutrients. Like, our bodies are essentially waiting for the chemical signals of autumn or winter, but we just keep feeding them the exact same flat, stress-free, mass-produced tomato every month of the year.
We are starving our biology of the cyclical variety it was calibrated for over hundreds of thousands of years.
Sure.
We are just completely out of sync with the rhythm of the year.
Okay, the biological argument is incredibly compelling. The botanical stress creating phytochemicals, the specialized fibers preventing a gut microbiome monoculture, it all makes logical sense.
It does. It's solid science.
But, and I have to bring us back to reality here, we are still left with the reality of 6 o'clock on a Tuesday evening.
Yeah.
The cognitive friction is still there. Knowing the science doesn't magically chop the vegetables for you.
Unfortunately not.
So how does the text suggest we actually bypass that ingredient intimidation and get these foods onto our plates without being completely overwhelmed?
The source offers a solution that directly addresses the cognitive load problem, and it's all about radical simplicity. It argues that we need to completely divorce the concept of cooking from the concept of complex recipes.
So just stripping away the variables entirely.
Yes. The text emphasizes treating whole foods with absolute minimalism. We're talking roasting, sautéing, or just eating them raw. No heavy sauces, no multi-step preparations, no julienning.
Going back to the music metaphor from earlier, if a complex recipe is like a heavily produced pop track, layered with synthesizers, backup vocals, and auto-tune, then this approach is like an acoustic cover of a brilliant song.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, because when you strip away all that heavy production, you can actually hear the grain of the singer's voice. You can hear the resonance of the wooden guitar. It leaves nowhere to hide, but it allows the raw underlying quality of the original material to really shine through.
That's perfect. And I want to focus on the mechanical shift that happens in your brain when you adopt that acoustic approach. Because when you believe that an unfamiliar ingredient, like bok choy, requires a complicated recipe just to be palatable, cooking is categorized in your brain as a high-stakes performance.
Right. You are worried about failing.
Yeah.
You're managing multiple variables at once: timing, temperature, flavor balance.
And that requires massive executive function.
Which is exactly what we don't have at the end of a workday.
Right. But when you lower the stakes to merely applying heat, oil, and salt to a vegetable, you eliminate the variables. You bypass the cognitive friction entirely. The text describes this transition as moving from a chore to a creative ritual.
Those two words operate on completely different psychological wavelengths.
They really do.
Like a chore is a transactional burden. It is something you endure purely to achieve an outcome. The process itself is just an obstacle. But a ritual implies presence. It implies that the value is located in the process itself, not just the final product.
Well, a ritual inherently demands mindfulness. When you are just quickly sautéing some seasonal greens without a strict recipe, you are forced to pay attention to the physical reality right in front of you.
You can't just space out.
No, you have to watch how the leaves wilt. You have to smell the chemical changes happening in the pan as the moisture releases. You are gathering novel sensory data, which actively pulls your brain out of its autopilot loop.
It re-engages the conscious mind.
Yeah.
So you aren't just fueling a biological machine anymore. You are actually participating in a sensory experience.
Hmm.
And because the stakes are so low, it doesn't matter if it doesn't turn out perfectly. You're simply experimenting.
Exactly. That removes the paralysis of perfectionism. You are engaging with the rhythm of the year in a tangible, low-pressure environment. It fundamentally rewires your relationship with the kitchen.
This brings us to the final challenge the source text lays out. It moves from the theoretical biology and psychology straight down to a concrete, actionable directive.
Right, the practical application.
For you listening, this is how you apply everything we've just decoded to your actual week.
The text issues a very direct physical invitation. The next time you walk through the sliding doors of your grocery store or walk into a local farmer's market, just recognize the moment your autopilot tries to engage.
Notice your feet trying to carry you to those standard bags of apples.
Yes. Notice it and deliberately interrupt that sequence.
Pick up something entirely new. It could be Bok Choy, honoring our source material, but it could be any seasonal item that creates that tiny spike of ingredient intimidation. Just hold it, bring it home.
And when you prepare it, apply that acoustic cover methodology we talked about. Find the simplest possible preparation, roast it with olive oil, saute it with garlic.
Keep it incredibly simple.
But the really crucial instruction from the text happens at the table. Take the time to taste it mindfully. Actually, pay attention to the fibrous texture. Notice the bitterness or the unexpected sweetness.
The source frames this entirely outside the traditional language of diet culture, which I found incredibly refreshing.
Oh, same here. It's so different.
Right. Because diets are built on restriction, on deficits, on a rigid set of rules that you inevitably break. But this framework is built entirely on addition and curiosity.
The author distills this into a really powerful concluding thought. Wellness isn't an all-or-nothing game. It's built on tiny moments of curiosity and care.
We fail at behavior change because we try to overhaul the entire system all at once. We declare that we are going to meal prep 7 days a week and only eat macronutrient-perfect meals.
And the cognitive load of that is just totally unsustainable.
So we crash. And within a week, we are right back to the familiar, numbing grocery store routine.
But substituting one familiar leafy green for an unfamiliar seasonal one, that requires almost zero sustained willpower. It is just a 3-minute pivot on a Tuesday night.
Exactly.
Yet mathematically, if you compound those tiny moments of curiosity over months and years, you completely alter the biological makeup of your microbiome, you drastically improve your immune resilience, and you fundamentally change your psychological relationship with food.
It is a remarkable synthesis. We started by analyzing a simple choice in the produce aisle, and we have unpacked cognitive offloading, botanical defense mechanisms, gut ecosystems, and the psychology of ritual.
It goes deep.
But there is one final, really provocative implication of this entire philosophy that we need to address before we go.
Yes. If you genuinely commit to this practice of seasonal eating, it inevitably alters your relationship with the world outside your house.
Let's explore the mechanics of that.
Well, the modern lifestyle is essentially defined by environmental isolation. We move from climate-controlled homes to climate-controlled cars to climate-controlled offices.
It's just bubble.
A total bubble. We stare at screens that emit the exact same frequency of light regardless of the weather outside. We are physically severed from the ecology of our own environment.
We basically live in a permanent artificial season.
Exactly. But if you deliberately align your diet with the rhythm of the year, as the text suggests, like if you eat crisp, water-dense produce during the relentless heat of August, and then you transition to dense, earthy, cold-stressed greens during the frost of January, you are building a daily, physical bridge between your internal biology and the external ecology.
You are literally allowing the environment to physically dictate the chemical makeup of your own cells.
Yes, and it creates this amazing feedback loop of awareness, because if your plate begins to reflect the actual season occurring outside your window, you cannot help but become more attuned to those seasonal shifts in your daily life.
Which leaves us with a fascinating question to consider today. If we break our cognitive autopilot to fix our diets, might we inadvertently cure our environmental blindness? Could the simple act of choosing a different vegetable fundamentally reconnect us with the natural world we've insulated ourselves from?
The mechanism is certainly there. By changing what we put on our plate, we really do sync our internal clocks back to the rhythm of the earth.
Think about that the next time you find yourself navigating the grocery store on pure muscle memory. If you recognize that sequence, interrupt the pattern, and pick up something new, you aren't just tweaking your dinner. You are taking a tiny, deliberate step back into the actual rhythm of the year. Stay curious, keep digging into the mechanics of the everyday, and we will see you on the next deep dive.